The Gospel of Judas, the forbidden betrayer's truth. Judas Iscariot, a name that has echoed through centuries as the ultimate symbol of betrayal and treachery. Known as the man who handed over Jesus Christ to the religious authorities, Judas occupies a singularly infamous position in the Christian narrative. But who was he truly? Was Judas merely a greedy opportunist who traded his teacher for 30 pieces of silver? Or was there more to his story, a complexity often overlooked in the shadow of his betrayal? The Gospel accounts paint a vivid yet straightforward picture of Judas. He was one of the 12 apostles, handpicked by Jesus himself to accompany him during his ministry. These apostles were not just followers, but confidants, entrusted with spreading the teachings of Christ and witnessing his miracles. Judas walked alongside Peter, John, and the others, sharing in their struggles and triumphs as Jesus preached to the masses and challenged the religious establishment. Despite his closeness to Jesus, Judas is most remembered for his infamous act of betrayal. The Gospel of Matthew recounts the chilling moment when Judas approaches the chief priests and offers to deliver Jesus to them. The price? 30 pieces of silver. The religious leaders, threatened by Jesus' growing influence and his claims of divinity, readily accept Judas' offer. The scene unfolds with haunting simplicity, yet its implications are enormous. Judas becomes the agent of Jesus' arrest, setting into motion the events that would lead to his crucifixion. For centuries, this act of betrayal has been interpreted as an ultimate sin, an unthinkable act of treachery. The term Judas has become synonymous with traitor, invoked not only in religious contexts, but also in literature, politics, and everyday language. But why did Judas betray Jesus? Was it greed, as suggested by the 30 pieces of silver? Was it disillusionment, a loss of faith in Jesus' mission? Or could there be a more profound reason, one rooted not in selfishness, but in divine purpose? Judas's motives remain a subject of intense debate among scholars, theologians, and believers. The Gospels offer differing perspectives. In the Gospel of John, Judas is portrayed as a thief, someone who embezzled money from the group's shared funds. This characterization aligns with the narrative of greed, painting Judas as a man who prioritized material wealth over spiritual devotion. Yet other accounts suggest a more complex picture. The Gospel of Luke, for instance, describes Satan entering Judas before he goes to the chief priests, implying that his actions were influenced by forces beyond his control. One of the most intriguing aspects of Judas's story is his relationship with Jesus. As one of the 12 apostles, Judas was part of Jesus's inner circle. He witnessed miracles, heard parables, and even participated in the Last Supper, a pivotal moment in Christian tradition. It was during this supper that Jesus, according to the Gospels, foretold his betrayal. "One of you will betray me," he said, causing shock and confusion among the disciples. Judas's role was known to Jesus, and yet he did not condemn or cast him out. Instead, he allowed Judas to fulfill his role, raising profound questions about destiny, free will, and divine purpose. This brings us to a critical juncture in Judas's story. Was his betrayal an act of free will, or was it predestined? The Gospels often emphasize the fulfillment of prophecy, suggesting that Judas's actions were part of a divine plan. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus refers to Judas as the one destined to be lost, implying that his betrayal was foretold and necessary for the salvation of humanity. This perspective complicates the narrative of Judas as a mere villain. If his betrayal was preordained, can he truly be held accountable? Or was he, in fact, an instrument of God's will? The consequences of Judas's actions were devastating, both for him and for Jesus. After leading the authorities to Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, Judas is overcome with remorse. The Gospel of Matthew describes him returning the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and declaring, "I have sinned, for I have betrayed innocent blood." His guilt drives him to despair and ultimately to his tragic end. The accounts of his death vary. Matthew describes him hanging himself, while the book of Acts depicts a gruesome fall, but the message is clear. Judas's betrayal and its aftermath were catastrophic. Yet, even in his demise, Judas remains a figure of mystery and debate. His remorse and acknowledgement of wrongdoing suggest a level of self-awareness and repentance. Could this imply that Judas sought redemption? And if so, is there room in the Christian narrative for his forgiveness? These questions have inspired countless theological discussions, artistic interpretations, and even alternative texts that challenge the traditional portrayal of Judas. Judas Iscariot's story is a cornerstone of Christian theology, encapsulating themes of loyalty, betrayal, sin, and redemption. However, it is also a story filled with ambiguities and unanswered questions. The traditional narrative casts him as the ultimate betrayer, a cautionary tale of greed and disloyalty. Yet, as we delve deeper into his life and actions, we begin to see shades of complexity that resist simple categorization. Was Judas a villain, a victim, or something in between? And what does his story tell us about the nature of faith, forgiveness, and divine purpose? As we transition to the next chapter, we will explore an alternative perspective on Judas's role, a perspective offered by a text long hidden from the world, the Gospel of Judas. This apocryphal text presents a radically different view of Judas, one that challenges the traditional narrative and forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about the man who betrayed Jesus. The Gospel of Judas is not merely an alternate account of Judas Iscariot's life and actions. It is a radical reinterpretation of his role in the divine plan. Unlike the canonical Gospels, which depict Judas as the ultimate betrayer, this apocryphal text presents him as a pivotal figure, chosen by Jesus for a divine mission that required betrayal as an act of loyalty. But what exactly is this controversial text? And how did it come to challenge one of Christianity's most established narratives? The Gospel of Judas was discovered in the 1970s in a cave near El Minya, Egypt, as part of a codex that had remained hidden for centuries. Written in Coptic, this text was part of the Gnostic tradition, a movement within early Christianity that emphasized personal spiritual knowledge, gnosis, over strict adherence to religious orthodoxy. Gnostic texts often portrayed the material world as corrupt, and the spiritual realm as the ultimate truth, offering unique interpretations of biblical events and figures. Unlike the canonical Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which focus on Jesus' life, teachings, death, and resurrection, the Gospel of Judas provides an intimate conversation between Jesus and Judas. This dialogue reveals a surprising twist. Judas is not portrayed as a traitor, but as the most enlightened of Jesus' disciples. The text positions Judas as the only one who truly understood Jesus' divine nature and his mission, making him a crucial participant in the fulfillment of that mission. One of the most striking elements of the Gospel of Judas is its criticism of the other disciples. According to the text, the other apostles failed to grasp the true essence of Jesus' teachings. They clung to earthly concerns and misunderstood the spiritual truths he sought to convey. In contrast, Judas is depicted as the one disciple who comprehended Jesus' divine plan. Jesus confides in Judas, sharing secrets about the cosmos, the nature of God, and the destiny of humanity. Secrets too profound for the other apostles to comprehend. Central to this gospel is the idea that Judas's betrayal was not an act of treachery, but a divinely orchestrated necessity. Jesus allegedly asks Judas to hand him over to the authorities, not out of malice, but as an act of obedience and love. In this narrative, Judas's actions are a fulfillment of Jesus' desire to transcend the material world and complete his divine mission. The betrayal, then, is recontextualized as a sacrifice, Judas endures eternal infamy to play his part in the salvation of humanity. The theology of the Gospel of Judas diverges significantly from Orthodox Christian beliefs. Gnostic cosmology, as reflected in the text, presents a dualistic view of existence. The material world is created by a lesser, flawed deity, while the true God resides in a higher spiritual realm. Jesus, according to this gospel, seeks to liberate humanity from the constraints of the material world and guide souls to the divine realm. Judas, by enabling Jesus' crucifixion, plays a key role in this cosmic liberation. The discovery of the Gospel of Judas sparked intense debate among scholars, theologians, and religious leaders. On one hand, the text offers a fascinating glimpse into the diversity of beliefs within early Christianity. It reveals that the understanding of Judas's role was far from uniform, with some communities viewing him not as a villain, but as a figure of profound spiritual significance. On the other hand, the Gospel's radical reinterpretation of Judas challenges deeply ingrained notions of sin, redemption, and divine will. The authenticity of the Gospel of Judas as an ancient text is widely accepted, though its theological claims remain controversial. Carbon dating has confirmed that the manuscript dates back to the 3rd or 4th century CE, aligning it with other Gnostic texts discovered in the Nag Hammadi library. However, its content was met with resistance by the early church, which sought to establish a unified doctrine. The text's association with Gnostic beliefs, deemed heretical by Orthodox Christianity, likely contributed to its suppression and eventual disappearance from the historical record. For centuries, the Gospel of Judas remained hidden, its existence known only through references by early church fathers who condemned it as heretical. Irenaeus, a prominent 2nd century bishop, denounced the text as a distortion of Christian teachings. His writings serve as some of the earliest evidence of the Gospel's existence, describing it as a work that declares Judas to have known the truth as no others did. The rediscovery of the Gospel of Judas in modern times has reignited questions about Judas's true role in the story of Jesus. Was he the ultimate betrayer, as tradition holds, or was he a misunderstood figure chosen for a divine purpose? This apocryphal text challenges readers to reconsider long-held beliefs and explore alternative perspectives on one of history's most infamous figures. As we move to the next chapter, we will delve into why the Gospel of Judas was considered so dangerous by the early church and why it was ultimately banned. The controversy surrounding this text sheds light on the power struggles and theological debates that shaped the foundation of Christianity. The Gospel of Judas is not just a controversial text, it is a window into the early power struggles and theological conflicts that shaped the foundation of Christianity. While the canonical Gospels became the bedrock of Christian orthodoxy, texts like the Gospel of Judas were deemed heretical and systematically suppressed. But why was this text considered so dangerous? What about its message made it a target for censorship and rejection by the early church? To understand the banishment of the Gospel of Judas, we must first examine the historical and theological context in which it emerged. The early centuries of Christianity were marked by diversity. Multiple interpretations of Jesus' teachings coexisted, ranging from the proto-Orthodox positions that would later form the basis of the Church to alternative movements like Gnosticism. These groups often clashed in their understanding of God, salvation, and the role of Jesus. The Gospel of Judas belonged to the Gnostic tradition, which presented a radically different worldview compared to Orthodox Christianity. Gnostics viewed the material world as a flawed creation of a lesser deity, often called the demiurge. Salvation, in their view, was not about physical resurrection or adherence to institutionalized religion, but about escaping the material realm through spiritual enlightenment. This cosmology stood in stark contrast to the teachings of the emerging church, which emphasized the goodness of creation, the authority of church leaders, and the centrality of Jesus' death and resurrection. In this theological battleground, the Gospel of Judas posed a significant threat. Its portrayal of Judas as the chosen disciple rather than a traitor directly undermined the traditional narrative. The idea that Judas acted on Jesus' instructions to fulfill a divine plan challenged the church's teachings on sin, free will, and redemption. If Judas was not the ultimate villain, but a participant in God's will, what did that mean for the church's understanding of morality and judgment? Furthermore, the Gospel of Judas openly criticized the other apostles, portraying them as ignorant and misguided. This critique extended to the early church itself, which claimed to carry on the apostles' teachings. By elevating Judas as the only disciple who truly understood Jesus, the text implicitly questioned the authority of the church and its leaders. In a time when the church was working to establish a unified doctrine and consolidate power, such challenges were intolerable. The political dimensions of the Gospel of Judas cannot be overlooked. As the church sought to define orthodoxy, it also sought to suppress dissenting voices. Texts like the Gospel of Judas were labeled heretical and excluded from the canon of Scripture. The Council of Nicaea in 325 CE, while not specifically addressing the Gospel of Judas, marked a turning point in the church's efforts to formalize its teachings and marginalize alternative perspectives. The result was the marginalization of Gnostic texts, many of which were destroyed or hidden by their followers to protect them from eradication. The condemnation of the Gospel of Judas by early church leaders further sealed its fate. Figures like Irenaeus, a second-century bishop and theologian, were vocal in their opposition to Gnostic texts. Irenaeus specifically denounced the Gospel of Judas in his work against heresies, describing it as a perversion of Christian doctrine. He accused its authors of distorting the truth and misleading believers, a charge that would resonate for centuries as the church sought to maintain control over its teachings. The suppression of the Gospel of Judas reflects a broader pattern in the history of Christianity. The church's efforts to define orthodoxy by silencing alternative voices. Texts that deviated from the approved narrative were not merely excluded, but actively erased from the historical record. The rediscovery of the Gospel of Judas centuries later is a testament to the resilience of these alternative traditions and the enduring human quest for spiritual understanding. Theologically, the Gospel of Judas was dangerous because it questioned core tenets of the church's teachings. It suggested that salvation was not achieved through faith and obedience to church doctrine, but through individual enlightenment and understanding. This emphasis on personal gnosis threatened the church's authority, as it diminished the role of institutional religion in mediating the relationship between humanity and the divine. Moreover, the text's portrayal of Judas as a misunderstood hero raised uncomfortable questions about sin and redemption. If Judas's betrayal was part of God's plan, could it truly be considered a sin? And if Judas was chosen by Jesus to fulfill this role, does that absolve him of guilt? These questions challenge the binary understanding of good and evil that underpins much of Christian theology, offering a more nuanced view of human actions and divine will. The Gospel of Judas also represents a clash between two visions of Christianity, one rooted in institutional authority and communal worship, and another centered on personal enlightenment and spiritual freedom. The Church's rejection of the Gospel of Judas was not merely a theological decision, but a reflection of its commitment to establishing a unified and authoritative tradition. By suppressing texts like this one, the Church sought to protect its teachings and ensure the stability of its growing community. As we transition to the next chapter, we will delve deeper into the controversial ideas presented in the Gospel of Judas. What do its teachings reveal about Judas's role in the divine plan? And how do they challenge our understanding of loyalty, betrayal, and redemption? The answers lie in the text itself, which continues to provoke debate and inspire reflection even today. The Gospel of Judas is not merely a reimagining of a biblical figure, but a text that challenges the very foundations of Christian doctrine. Its controversial ideas force readers to question established narratives about loyalty, betrayal, and salvation. As we delve into the theological concepts presented in this gospel, it becomes clear why it was considered so dangerous by the early church. At the heart of the Gospel of Judas is a radical reinterpretation of Judas Iscariot's role in the story of Jesus. In this text, Judas is not the ultimate betrayer, as portrayed in the canonical Gospels, but the most enlightened of Jesus' disciples. The narrative reveals a secret dialogue between Jesus and Judas, in which Jesus confides truths about the universe, the divine, and the nature of humanity. This conversation elevates Judas to a position of unique understanding, making him an essential figure in the fulfillment of Jesus' mission. One of the most striking ideas in the Gospel of Judas is the concept of betrayal as a divine necessity. According to the text, Jesus asks Judas to betray him, not out of malice, but as an act of obedience to a higher plan. This reframing turns the traditional narrative on its head. Judas's actions are no longer a sinful act of treachery, but a crucial step in God's design. By handing Jesus over to the authorities, Judas enables his crucifixion, which is seen as the key to humanity's salvation. This perspective raises profound theological questions. If Judas's betrayal was part of a divine plan, can it truly be considered a sin? And if Judas acted on Jesus' instructions, does that absolve him of guilt? These questions challenge the binary understanding of good and evil that underpins much of Christian theology. The Gospel of Judas invites readers to view Judas not as a villain, but as a misunderstood hero who sacrificed his reputation and soul for the greater good. Another controversial aspect of the Gospel of Judas is its critique of the other apostles. The text portrays the other disciples as ignorant and misguided, clinging to earthly concerns and failing to comprehend Jesus' true teachings. In contrast, Judas is depicted as the only disciple who truly understands Jesus' divine nature and mission. This critique extends to the early church itself, which claimed to carry on the apostles' teachings. By undermining the authority of the other apostles, the Gospel of Judas implicitly questions the legitimacy of the church as an institution. The theological framework of the Gospel of Judas is deeply rooted in Gnostic beliefs, which diverge significantly from Orthodox Christianity. Gnosticism presents a dualistic view of existence, where the material world is seen as a flawed creation of a lesser deity, often referred to as the demiurge. In this worldview, salvation is achieved not through faith or obedience to religious authorities, but through spiritual enlightenment and the pursuit of divine knowledge. In the Gospel of Judas, Jesus reveals the nature of the cosmos and the divine to Judas, emphasizing the contrast between the corrupt material world and the true spiritual realm. This teaching aligns with Gnostic cosmology, which views the physical body and the material world as prisons for the soul. The ultimate goal, according to Gnostic thought, is to escape the material realm and return to the divine source. Judas's role in enabling Jesus' crucifixion is portrayed as a necessary step in this process of liberation. This dualistic worldview challenges key aspects of Orthodox Christian theology, such as the goodness of creation and the centrality of Jesus' physical resurrection. The Gospel of Judas shifts the focus from Jesus' death and resurrection as redemptive acts to his teachings as a guide to spiritual enlightenment. This reinterpretation undermines the Church's emphasis on communal worship sacraments, and adherence to doctrine as paths to salvation. The Gospel of Judas also introduces the idea of secret knowledge, or gnosis, as the key to understanding the divine. This emphasis on personal enlightenment resonates with Gnostic traditions, but clashes with the communal and hierarchical structure of the Church. By presenting Judas as the recipient of Jesus' secret teachings, the text elevates individual understanding above institutional authority, a concept that was deeply threatening to the early Church. The implications of the Gospel of Judas extend beyond theology to broader questions about human nature and morality. The text invites readers to reconsider the concept of betrayal and its role in the human experience. If Judas's actions were part of a divine plan, what does that say about the nature of free will? And if Judas was chosen by Jesus to fulfill this role, can he be seen as a tragic figure rather than a villain? The Gospel of Judas challenges readers to embrace complexity and ambiguity, offering a nuanced perspective on one of Christianity's most infamous figures. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the nature of faith, loyalty, and divine purpose. By presenting Judas as a figure of spiritual insight and sacrifice, the text reframes the story of Jesus' betrayal as a story of cosmic necessity and redemption. As we transition to the next chapter, we will explore the impact of the Gospel of Judas on modern theology and culture. How has this controversial text influenced our understanding of Judas and the broader narrative of Christianity? And what does its rediscovery mean for those seeking to reconcile faith with historical and spiritual inquiry? The rediscovery of the Gospel of Judas in the late 20th century sent shockwaves through theological circles and reignited debates about Judas Iscariot's role in the Christian narrative. For centuries, Judas had been vilified as the ultimate betrayer, a cautionary figure whose actions symbolized greed, disloyalty, and sin. But with the publication of this alternative gospel, a new narrative began to emerge, one that re-examines Judas not as a villain, but as a misunderstood and even heroic figure. This chapter explores the profound cultural and religious impact of the Gospel of Judas and how it has influenced contemporary perspectives on Christianity. The Gospel of Judas offers a dramatically different interpretation of Judas's relationship with Jesus, portraying him as a disciple uniquely entrusted with knowledge and responsibility. This radical reinterpretation has challenged traditional views and prompted theologians, scholars, and believers to revisit fundamental questions about morality, divine will, and the nature of salvation. For many, the text serves as a reminder of the diverse and often competing perspectives that existed in early Christianity, long before the formation of a unified doctrine. One of the most significant impacts of the Gospel of Judas has been its role in reshaping the public's understanding of Judas Iscariot. In popular culture, Judas has traditionally been depicted as the archetype of treachery, a one-dimensional figure whose betrayal set the stage for Jesus' crucifixion. From medieval art to modern films and musicals like Jesus Christ Superstar, Judas's character has often been reduced to his infamous act of betrayal. However, the Gospel of Judas complicates this narrative by presenting Judas as a complex and multi-dimensional character, a man who acted out of obedience rather than malice. This alternative portrayal has found resonance in contemporary discussions about forgiveness, redemption, and the human capacity for both good and evil. By suggesting that Judas's actions were part of a divine plan, the Gospel of Judas invites readers to consider the possibility of moral ambiguity and the interplay between free will and destiny. For some, this reinterpretation has made Judas a more relatable and even sympathetic figure, one whose struggles and choices reflect the complexities of human existence. The Gospel of Judas has also had a significant impact on theological discourse. Scholars and theologians have used the text as a lens through which to explore broader questions about the formation of the biblical canon and the suppression of alternative voices in early Christianity. The text's Gnostic elements, its emphasis on secret knowledge, its critique of materialism, and its portrayal of a flawed creator, have prompted renewed interest in the Gnostic tradition and its contributions to Christian thought. For the academic community, the Gospel of Judas has provided valuable insights into the diversity of early Christian beliefs and practices. It serves as a reminder that Christianity was not a monolithic entity in its early centuries, but a vibrant and contested movement with competing interpretations of Jesus' teachings. The text's critique of institutional authority and its emphasis on individual enlightenment offer a stark contrast to the hierarchical structure that came to define Orthodox Christianity. The rediscovery of the Gospel of Judas has also sparked renewed interest in other apocryphal texts and the stories they tell. Like the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Judas challenges the traditional narrative and invites readers to explore alternative perspectives on Jesus' life and message. Together, these texts contribute to a richer and more nuanced understanding of the Christian tradition, one that acknowledges the complexity and diversity of its origins. Culturally, the Gospel of Judas has inspired a range of creative works, from novels and films to music and visual art. These interpretations often explore the themes of betrayal, redemption, and the search for truth, using Judas as a vehicle for examining broader human experiences. For many artists and writers, the Gospel of Judas has served as a powerful symbol of resistance against dogma and an invitation to question conventional wisdom. However, the text's controversial nature has not been without its challenges. Theological institutions and conservative Christian groups have often dismissed the Gospel of Judas as heretical or irrelevant, arguing that it distorts the true teachings of Jesus. For these critics, the text's Gnostic elements and its elevation of Judas as a chosen disciple undermine the core tenets of Christianity and threaten to confuse believers. This resistance reflects the ongoing tension between tradition and innovation, orthodoxy and alternative interpretations. Despite these criticisms, the Gospel of Judas continues to resonate with those who seek to understand the complexities of faith and the human condition. Its rediscovery and subsequent translation have opened up new avenues for dialogue and exploration, challenging believers and non-believers alike to grapple with the ambiguities of morality, destiny, and divine purpose. For some, the text represents a path to a deeper and more personal connection with the spiritual realm, one that transcends the boundaries of institutional religion. As we transition to the next chapter, we will delve into the story of how the Gospel of Judas was rediscovered and preserved against all odds. This remarkable journey sheds light on the fragility of historical knowledge and the enduring human quest to uncover hidden truths. How did this long-lost text survive centuries of suppression, and what does its rediscovery mean for our understanding of Christianity and its origins? The story of how the Gospel of Judas was rediscovered is as remarkable and compelling as the text itself. Lost for centuries, the manuscript's survival and eventual reappearance offer a fascinating glimpse into the fragility of historical knowledge and the human quest to uncover hidden truths. From its initial disappearance to its eventual unveiling in the modern era, the journey of this ancient text is a testament to the enduring power of curiosity and scholarship. The Gospel of Judas was likely composed in the 2nd century CE, a period of intense theological diversity within Christianity. Early church leaders, determined to establish a unified doctrine, labeled the text heretical and actively worked to suppress it. By the 4th century, the rise of the institutional church and the formalization of the biblical canon at councils like Nicaea ensured that texts like the Gospel of Judas would be excluded and marginalized. For centuries, The Gospel existed only as a shadowy memory, referenced in the writings of early church fathers like Irenaeus, who condemned it as a dangerous distortion of Christian teachings. For nearly 1,700 years, the Gospel of Judas was thought to be lost, its existence preserved only in the polemics of its detractors. That changed in the 1970s, when a Coptic manuscript containing the text was discovered in a cave near El Minya, Egypt. This manuscript, part of a codex known as the Codex Chaikos, was written in the 3rd or 4th century CE and contained not only the Gospel of Judas, but also other Gnostic texts, including a version of the letter of Peter to Philip and portions of the first Apocalypse of James. The manuscript's journey from discovery to publication was anything but straightforward. After its initial discovery, the codex fell into the hands of antiquities dealers who sought to sell it on the black market. For years, it passed through various hands, often stored in suboptimal conditions that caused significant deterioration. At one point, it was kept in a safety deposit box in Long Island, New York, where it languished for over a decade, exposed to humidity and neglect. In the early 2000s, the manuscript was acquired by the Maecenas Foundation for Ancient Art, a Swiss organization dedicated to the preservation of cultural heritage. Recognizing the importance of the text, the foundation enlisted a team of experts to authenticate, restore, and translate the manuscript. The process was painstaking, requiring careful reconstruction of fragmented pages and the use of advanced techniques to stabilize the fragile parchment. In 2006, the Gospel of Judas was finally unveiled to the world. Its publication by the National Geographic Society marked a watershed moment in biblical scholarship, sparking intense debate and fascination. For the first time, the public had access to a text that had been lost for centuries, a text that offered a radically different perspective on one of Christianity's most infamous figures. The rediscovery of the Gospel of Judas was not only a triumph of scholarship, but also a reminder of the fragility of historical artifacts. The manuscript's survival was nothing short of miraculous, given the centuries of suppression, neglect, and the challenges of the antiquities trade. Its preservation is a testament to the dedication of scholars, conservators, and institutions committed to uncovering and protecting the past. The publication of the Gospel of Judas reignited interest in Gnostic texts and the diversity of early Christian thought. It challenged the traditional narrative of Judas as a traitor and invited readers to consider alternative interpretations of his role in the story of Jesus. For scholars, the text provided valuable insights into the theological debates of the 2nd century and the ways in which dissenting voices were silenced by the emerging church. The story of the Gospel of Judas also highlights the ethical complexities of the antiquities trade. The manuscript's journey through the black market underscored the challenges of preserving cultural heritage in a globalized world. While its eventual restoration and publication were cause for celebration, the conditions of its discovery and the delays caused by its commodification serve as a cautionary tale about the risks faced by historical artifacts. Today, the Gospel of Judas is housed in the Coptic Museum in Cairo, where it is preserved as a treasure of ancient history and a testament to the enduring power of ideas. Its rediscovery has sparked renewed interest in the apocryphal texts and the stories they tell, encouraging scholars and the public alike to revisit the origins of Christianity with fresh eyes. As we move to the final chapter, we will reflect on the legacy of the Gospel of Judas and its implications for our understanding of faith, morality, and the human quest for meaning. What lessons can we learn from this ancient text, and how does its story continue to resonate in the modern world? The legacy of the Gospel of Judas extends far beyond its content or the circumstances of its rediscovery. It represents a profound challenge to traditional narratives, a reminder of the diversity within early Christianity, and an invitation to explore the complexities of faith, morality, and divine purpose. As we conclude this journey through one of the most controversial and fascinating texts in religious history, we reflect on its enduring impact and the lessons it offers. The Gospel of Judas forces us to confront the idea that history is written by the victors. For centuries, the canonical Gospels have shaped our understanding of Jesus, his disciples, and the events that defined Christianity. However, texts like the Gospel of Judas reveal that early Christianity was a pluralistic and contested movement, with diverse perspectives vying for legitimacy. By suppressing texts like this one, the Church sought to establish orthodoxy, but in doing so, it silenced voices that offered alternative visions of faith and salvation. This text's rediscovery is a testament to the resilience of these suppressed traditions. Despite centuries of condemnation and obscurity, the Gospel of Judas has survived, offering a glimpse into a worldview that challenges conventional wisdom. Its portrayal of Judas as a chosen disciple rather than a traitor forces readers to re-evaluate their assumptions about loyalty, betrayal, and divine will. It reminds us that the stories we tell about the past are shaped by cultural, political, and theological agendas. The theological implications of the Gospel of Judas are both provocative and profound. By presenting Judas's actions as part of a divine plan, the text reframes the concepts of sin and redemption. It challenges the binary understanding of good and evil that underpins much of Christian theology, offering instead a nuanced perspective on human actions and divine purpose. This reinterpretation has resonated with contemporary audiences seeking to reconcile faith with the complexities of the human condition. For modern readers, the Gospel of Judas also serves as a powerful symbol of intellectual and spiritual freedom. Its emphasis on personal enlightenment and its critique of institutional authority resonate with those who value individuality and the pursuit of knowledge. In a world where religious orthodoxy often clashes with personal exploration, the text offers a reminder that faith can take many forms and that dissenting voices have a place in the spiritual conversation. The cultural impact of the Gospel of Judas is equally significant. Its rediscovery has inspired a wave of creative works, from novels and films to music and visual art. These interpretations explore the themes of betrayal, redemption, and the search for truth, using Judas as a lens through which to examine broader human experiences. For many artists and writers, the Gospel of Judas represents a challenge to dogma and an opportunity to reimagine one of history's most infamous figures. At the same time, the text has sparked controversy and resistance, particularly from religious institutions that view it as a threat to established doctrine. Critics argue that the Gospel of Judas distorts the teachings of Jesus and undermines the authority of the Church. These debates reflect the ongoing tension between tradition and innovation, orthodoxy and alternative interpretations, and the role of faith in a changing world. Ultimately, the legacy of the Gospel of Judas lies in its ability to provoke thought and inspire dialogue. It encourages readers to question assumptions, explore alternative perspectives, and engage with the complexities of faith and morality. Whether viewed as a heretical distortion or a profound revelation, the text continues to captivate and challenge those who encounter it. As we conclude, we are left with the question, what does the Gospel of Judas mean for us today? For some, it represents a rediscovery of lost truths and a path to spiritual enlightenment. For others, it is a cautionary tale about the dangers of departing from orthodoxy. But for all, it is a reminder that faith is a dynamic and evolving journey, shaped by the stories we tell and the questions we dare to ask. The Gospel of Judas remains a powerful testament to the human quest for meaning and understanding. Its story is not just about a controversial text, but about the enduring struggle to reconcile faith, history, and the complexities of the human spirit. In its pages, we find not only an alternative view of Judas, but also a mirror reflecting our own search for truth and purpose.